Welcome to the Kids Health Uncomplicated podcast, an official podcast of Cincinnati Children's. Today's episode is part of a series focused on topics about being a new parent. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our host, Dr. Patty Manning. Hi, Patty.
Hey, Kyle.
So, Patty, were you an anxious new mom, or did the medical training give you a little more confidence going in?
Oh, gosh. I wish there was an easy answer to that. I would say I was both. I think I thought I wouldn't be anxious, so the anxiety came as a little bit of a surprise. I certainly knew things and had the benefit of my medical training, but really nothing prepares you for being a parent.
It's really hard not to be anxious, I feel like.
I mean, I almost wonder if you're human, if you're not anxious. If you're so relaxed when you have a new baby, it's like, what's the deal? I'd almost be a little bit worried if you weren't a little anxious.
Patty, do you have any of your own stories about being a parent and being anxious as a new parent?
So here I am, I'm a pediatrician. I have my firstborn. I think I'm so, I know everything. And I have my friends who are residents. They're coming by and I trim his fingernails for the first time and I cut it a little too close. And he gives a little squawk. I lose it. I couldn't believe that I did this to my baby. I'm a pediatrician. And I cut his nail too close and I called them and said, oh, what do I do? And they were like, are you kidding? It's a fingernail. I think he's going to be fine.
They grow back.
They grow back. Exactly. But it was a moment. I remember it very clearly.
As a new grandma, is it hard watching your kids now being new parents?
Yeah, it's hard when they have anxiety or questions. It's wonderful to be there as a resource for them, but mostly it's just the biggest joy you can imagine.
Have you fielded any 3 a.m. phone calls?
I have. I have. They called the very first night they were home at 3 a.m., literally. She wasn't sleeping. I went over and they were exhausted. I mean, they just had called several times before then. At 3 a.m., they pulled the trigger and said, come on over. Yeah. And I said, give her over here. And they said, how'd you get her to sleep? Because they were, she wasn't feeding and they didn't have a binky. I said, I stuck my finger in her mouth and she went to sleep.
That's so good. I love that.
I have fielded a 3 a.m. phone call, yes. Which is what you're supposed to do, right?
You get a lot of help being a new parent. And I think that perfectly leads us into today's episode.
Yes. So today's episode I'm really excited about because I think it is relevant to really every new parent. And that is the topic of new parent anxiety. We're going to have Dr. Nick DeBlasio, who's a general pediatrician at Cincinnati Children's, join me and talk about this very timely topic. So please join me for New Parent Anxiety Uncomplicated. We've got Dr. Nick DeBlasio here with us today. He's a general pediatrician in our primary care clinic at Cincinnati Children's, and he's also a leader in our residency training program, which means he helps new residents become pediatricians. So he has a lot of expertise in talking to new parents about what it's like and how to deal with that anxiety. So welcome, Nick.
Thank you for having me. And agree, great topic and very common and just a really important topic. So glad we're chatting about it.
You have seen so many new parents, thousands and thousands of new parents and their newborns. What are some of the most common anxieties that you hear about from new parents?
So I think probably the big three that I tend to hear about are, is my baby eating enough? Is my baby pooping enough? And is my baby sleeping the right amount? And I think one of the things that's really hard is sometimes we don't always have the best answers to those, which sometimes can add a little bit to the anxiety. So I always encourage you, every baby's a little bit different. So when you come in for those visits, talk with your pediatrician, and we love to talk about these types of topics.
Were those in rank order, those anxieties?
It depends on the family. They can go either way.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, they bounce. But those three sound very, very familiar.
Absolutely.
Even to me as a new parent, I know that we both experienced as new parents the stress of sleep deprivation and worrying about just the basics of getting the baby fed. How do you help parents understand the difference between normal newborn behavior and something that actually warrants a call to the pediatrician's office?
Sure. That's a great question. I think a lot of it is those first couple days, couple weeks is really getting to know who your baby is as a person. Every baby is a little bit different. Some babies are just super kind of chill from the get-go. Others are a little bit more, for lack of a better word, spirited. So I think you kind of get to know kind of your baby's temperament within the first couple of days, couple weeks, of life or so. So I always tell parents, like, you've gotten to know your baby a little bit. These are things, if you notice a change in that, like that's something that we would want to know about. The other thing is changes from that baseline and temperament are, if you have a baby, even if they're not that old, all of a sudden is just super fussy, is like screaming all day long, or a baby who you notice is just something just seems different. Those are things, that we want to hear about. Like I said, you don't really know your baby that well in the very beginning. So that's the reasons why we're here. Like, call us and we're happy to kind of talk you through, hey, this is pretty typical. And hey, that actually does seem a little bit unusual. We'd love to see you guys in the office. So if you have concerns, don't feel like that you are responsible for, diagnosing and managing all of this. That's why you have a pediatrician. And I will tell you, like, those are the calls that we love to get. Like, we love to help all families, but especially families with new babies, to just kind of help them navigate that time, which can be a little bit tricky.
It's interesting how you reference, you're really just getting to know each other. You're getting to know your baby and your baby's getting to know you. And I do worry that new parents have that expectation of like knowing everything right away.
Yes.
And you can't. It takes some time to know what your baby's temperament is. They're still declaring that in the first few weeks of life.
Absolutely. Yes. And I think that's one of the things I think parents put so much pressure on themselves in the beginning that everything has to be perfect and they need to know everything about their baby. And to say it for the third time, you're just getting to know each other. I mean, it is not only a new person to the world, but a completely new person to you. And it can take a while to get to know a baby's temperament and, just kind of their general kind of disposition.
We live in the age of information overload, right? We can have answers at our fingertips. We can Google, we can ask ChatGPT, we can definitely turn to social media. I also think that social media, which is a great tool for a lot of families, does tend to romanticize this period and make it just look lovely and glorious and wonderful. And if you're not having that experience as a parent, you feel kind of weird and isolated. So how do you help parents kind of navigate the information overload and the social media input that they're bound to get as new parents?
One of the first things that I always like to do when newborn visits is to really just normalize that this is really hard. It is very, very hard. And of course, you're excited, like there's a new baby. But along with that new baby comes a lot of new challenges. The sleep deprivation. You're literally taking care of, a person who's 100%, dependent. So I try really hard to just normalize with families. It is okay to not feel joy, all day long. Like, it is a very hard, it's just a hard time. The other thing is there's so much information out there. It is really tricky to weed through kind of what is actually accurate information, what is just on a particular blog that isn't necessarily have the most up-to-date information, et cetera. So I encourage people, really rely on your pediatrician. And you'll notice I keep on saying that because I really mean it. Like, we are there not only to, help you with, just kind of, oh, my baby has a fever or my baby, is constipated. We're there to really help you with kind of those, the typical questions and challenges that come up in the first few days, weeks, months, et cetera. So if you have questions, you're not sure, like, is this normal? Is this abnormal? Call us. And we really like to have good relationships. Pediatrics, I think one of the reasons we all choose it is because we love working with patients and families. And we like to have those relationships where families feel comfortable to call us. And, we have amazing pediatric nurses that, handle triage calls as well. So there is a team that is there to help you, and I think truly, like, we're all on the same team. We all want to make sure that your baby's getting the best care.
I like that you reference the team approach to care, because parents might call and they might get a nurse or some other office staff member who has tremendous expertise in this space and has seen thousands of babies and thousands of families and can address those questions. So it's a good team to build a relationship with as a new parent. Understand the team members in your pediatrician's office and establish a relationship with them.
Absolutely. I love it. We will have families who will come in and they'll say, I just talked to, Mary on the phone. I'd love to meet her. And so Mary will pop in, from the triage room. And it's true, like you will talk to many of our same team members over and over and over again. And I think that when you establish that trust is really important, just recognizing that you really do have a team that you can count on and who's really here to help you.
These are people who actually also want to get to know you as a family.
Yes.
They really are invested in getting to know you and your baby. And so it's a very bidirectional team building that you're doing with new parents. You want to, that's what I love about pediatrics is that our nurses wanted to know the family members. They wanted to be connected and have a relationship. So it's take advantage of that as a new parent.
Absolutely. Yes.
How do you talk to parents about maybe the simple things that they can do early on to build their confidence in their parenting?
Sure. So simple things. So a little bit of routine, and notice I say a little bit, can be helpful. I think that routine brings confidence and comfort to everybody, whether you are a newborn or whether you're a 50-year-old man. I think that routines are comforting. And I think that parents do feel like if there's a little bit of a routine that makes you feel like you have a little bit of control in the situation. And so I feel like when you have that control, that can make you a little bit more confident. One of the things that families really worry the most about is my baby gaining enough weight? We will have parents come in and kind of look at that scale like the enemy, waiting for that number to pop up. I always say, if you have concerns about that, come in. We're happy to see you for a weight check. We weigh the baby. 9 times out of 10, the weight gain is fantastic. And I think that is super reassuring to a new mom and a new dad. I find that confidence tends to increase a little bit more as babies start to develop. And you can speak to this more than I can. But, I think there's something to be said when your baby smiles, when your baby starts to coo. Those are things that you recognize, you know what? I'm doing a pretty good job. Like this baby is really thriving. So I think just celebrating those milestones and just recognizing that you're getting there, that you're doing a good job. Your baby is growing. Your baby's thriving. If your baby poops, that means that you're feeding them a good amount. So I think it is those simple things. You're giving your baby good food. Your baby pees. That means you're giving him or her enough food. So just recognizing that even those small things are actually really accomplishments and achievements in themselves.
I love that. I love taking pride in those types of things because it means you're doing something right.
Absolutely.
If they're going to the bathroom, you're doing something right.
Yes.
Tell me about a new parent's worry and how that might move into a relatively common condition, and that is postpartum anxiety or postpartum depression. What do family members look out for? What do you look out for as a pediatrician? Because that's, I'm sure, something you've come across.
Absolutely. I think, first of all, those are conversations that we always like to have at those visits to just kind of normalize this. Like, we see a lot of postpartum depression. We see a lot of postpartum anxiety. I never want people to feel like that's not a topic that they can't discuss. And some people feel like, oh, that's the pediatrician. They don't take care of, adults. Well, I always say a pediatrician is really a friend of the family. So, I will have parents, moms and dads come, and they will express a lot of the concern around their own parental anxiety or depression. And we're there not to necessarily provide the treatment, but really to kind of connect people with resources and also just let them know, hey, these are steps, that you can take. So what I look for is something that's kind of gone beyond the realm of the typical questions that we will get, and that we are seeing a parent who, despite kind of a lot of reassurance, is still, you can tell, is just incredibly anxious. Normalizing it by asking is a really key part to let parents know, like, hey, we're here to help you with stuff. First question I like to ask at the newborn visit is, congratulations. How are you guys doing? Because I think that is so important.
Yeah.
And we offer a lot of reassurance, et cetera, but sometimes families need a little bit more, and that's okay. That's what we're there to kind of help point them in that right direction. So just normalizing it, offering solutions. But when things kind of move beyond the realm of typical, it's often pretty easy to recognize. And oftentimes the parents have recognized it themselves. And oftentimes may just need someone to say, hey, I'm just noticing you seem a little bit more anxious.
More tearful, more,
Yes. And those, and I feel like parents are very open to that.
I like how you do things that take the shame away from this, because that's what gives me so much sort of heartburn around the new parent experience, is that there's some shame associated sometimes with feeling overwhelmed or anxious or depressed. And we don't want people, shame will keep you from getting the help that you need.
Absolutely.
And so talking about it, asking the question first, I love that you lead with, how are you guys doing? Because the baby's probably fine.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Usually, I had a question for you about kind of a specific area of anxiety that I've seen in some parents, some young parents. And it has to do a little bit with worry about the baby and that the baby will stop breathing. Have you heard that one? Have you heard parents say, I can't relax because I'm afraid the baby is going to stop breathing?
I hear that a lot. I've had parents that will go and buy all these particular types of monitors. And my general rule is healthy babies do not need monitoring. And you will hear stories about, babies who were maybe really premature, the do go home on monitors. That's not what we're talking about today.
Right.
We're talking about kind of your healthy babies. And parents, I've had parents say, we're literally up all night. We take shifts. We just like to make sure.
Watch.
to watch, to make sure, that the baby is breathing. If your baby has some type of breathing issue, whether it be from cardiac or lung or heart or lungs, there are going to be other signs. They're not just going to randomly just kind of stop breathing.
Right.
There are going to be other signs that pop up. Maybe while this baby's turning blue, like when she feeds or things like that. The most important thing I will tell people is, as far as sleep, is just make sure you create a safe sleep environment.
Right.
Put your baby, we talk about ABCs of safe sleep all the time, alone, on their back, in a crib, and nothing else in that crib, and your baby will be fine.
Yeah.
And just that reassurance, I think, is super helpful to families. Another thing I will throw in there, this is a couple months from now when babies start to roll, I have parents who will say they get up at night, and if their baby flips onto their belly, they flip them over onto their back. And I just imagine like this hot dog rotisserie of like babies just kind of like being flipped around all night. And I do not do that. Like I say, put your baby to sleep on his or her back, and then make sure that, again, the ABCs, nothing else in the crib. They are alone. They're asleep on their back. And then if they can go one way, they can go the other.
So you're anti-baby rotisserie.
Yes,
is what I'm
absolutely.
hearing. Okay, that's
yes.
good. It's good to confirm. I wanted to clarify that.
Yes.
It makes me think a little bit about how you've seen what I'll call the monitor evolution during your career, because monitors have changed really significantly from when we had kids, right? They've gone from just these kind of crude audio crackly things that we had by our bedsides to pretty high-tech things these days.
My oldest is now 21. When we had him, my wife is incredibly practical, and we had the monitors. So it was just the kind you were describing, those crackly ones. And she said, turn that thing off. If he's screaming, we'll hear it. And we were like, okay. And like we turned off monitors. We didn't use any monitors for our kids, which honestly, in hindsight, was really fantastic. Because if he was screaming, we would hear it and we would know what we needed to do. What's happened now is you have all these monitors that are tracking vitals and doing all this stuff. And it is too much information overload. Like I think it just adds to the anxiety because you're monitoring stuff that honestly doesn't need to be monitored.
Yeah.
There are typical variations in heart rate, respiratory rate, et cetera. And I think when you're tracking all this stuff, you can almost kind of your mind can go to really bad places because it's too much information.
There have been great advances, and they, by and large, I'm sure they've made things much easier for parents. But in some ways, they can add stress and anxiety, and we don't want to do that. So.
Absolutely.
Before we go, we always like to close these episodes with a couple myths versus facts. So myth or fact, 90% of what new parents worry about is completely normal.
Yes, I would agree. If not 95%.
The myth might be that it's not 90. It might be 99.
Yeah. But again, I'll kind of echo what I said earlier. Call. Like that's what we're here to do. So if you're not sure something's normal or not. And I think sometimes parents will feel guilt about, this is the second baby. I should know this. I'm not going to call. Every baby is different. Call if something doesn't seem right. But the 99% of the time we will say, yep, that's pretty normal.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Okay, here's another one. Every parent thinks they're doing something wrong at first.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Like including pediatrician parents, including people who think they should know everything. And oh my gosh, absolutely.
The most humbling experience of my entire life was coming home with my oldest. We were like, we don't know anything.
And you're a pediatrician. And you do. You're in the space that you really haven't been in. You've taken care of hundreds, if not thousands of babies.
Yes.
And yet when it's your baby, you question everything.
Here's another one. You're doing better than you think you are.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. This I feel like is one of the core of pediatrics is parents want to do the best for their kids.
Yes.
What I love to see parents for checkups, the main thing I like to do is really just reassure and compliment them because like they're working so hard.
Yes.
And, especially this first few months, it's a little bit of a thankless job. Your baby's just kind of laying there like this and you're just kind of doing your work.
Yeah.
And I mean, but parents work incredibly hard and do a great job.
I don't think I ever met a parent who wasn't doing their best, really from their heart.
Yes.
And wanted the best for their child. And I love that about our work. So
I think this was a really valuable conversation for a lot of new parents to hear. And thank you both for doing this. Patty, I'll let you wrap it up.
Thank you, Dr. DeBlasio, Nick, for being here.
My pleasure.
We will have you back again, I'm sure, to talk about other topics. That was New Parent Anxiety Uncomplicated. Thanks for joining us. Hope to see you again.